The fly we're going to tie today is the Serendipity. It's brought to you by the Kennebec Valley Fly Tyers and is sponsored by the Kennebec Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited. The materials for this fly call for a scud style hook, and as you can see, this is a scud hook, but it's a 1 extra fine, 2 extra short, it's curved, and about the only thing it has in common with this scud hook is the curve. This one you can see is 2 extra heavy wire. It's only a 1 extra short shank. Any curved shank will do. There's 8/0 thread. You could use 6 if you want to. I use 8 almost all the time on it. Here's some Antron olive, which is the most common color. People often use Z-lon. This is a braided strand body, they call it. You can use Krystal Flash like I've got there, or Flashaboo. This is orange dyed elk, and this is white belly hair from a deer. Either one of these will do the small crown on the top of the fly for you when you're finishing up. And you go ahead and start the hook on about the size of the eye behind the eye, and then get yourself about a 5 or a 6 inch length of Antron, in this case I'm using, or whatever material you're going to use. Attach it on, pull it into place, and wrap back onto the bend. And when you get back to the bend, take extra care to go down around the bend a ways and then wrap back up to where you started the thread. But you want to be down on the bend quite a bit. Now watch, I'm going to stroke this material to try to get all the bumps and loose fibers and stuff smoothed out, and I'm going to start spinning this clockwise. And as I spin this clockwise, it comes up tight, and I'm going to start wrapping it around the shank. But if you spin clockwise like this and then you wrap over the top, you can see the fibers tend to unwrap. And now I'll try to tighten them up. I'll try to wrap that over again. No luck. And the problem is I'm basically turning it the wrong way. Just can't get it to go. So let me bring this cradle into play and get this bobbin out of the way. You can see a little better the way I'm twisting. I can get my fingers up in here. See, I'm twisting to the left, away from the eye of the hook. And by doing that, once I get this twisted tight and I start wrapping, it doesn't unwrap with each wrap. Instead, it wraps tighter. And so I can wrap the whole length of the shank and not have all these loose fibers occur, and just be unsightly and be something that catches on the fish's teeth and gets torn up. So if you twist that way to kind of towards the bend of the hook, you can wrap all the way forward like this, and if you run out of tightness, you can twist a little more. You can wrap all the way up and get up to about where you started your thread, and that's where you would stop wrapping the body. Now I'm going to unwrap that. I twisted that all up by hand, and having a rotary vise here, I'm going to show you the advantage of a rotary vise if you should happen to have one or are thinking about it. This type of body is one where there's a very distinct advantage, because you tighten it up and then you just start wrapping. There's no unwrapping or wrapping. You could twist it probably in either direction. And if you see the body is loose like it was, you can just unwrap to that point and tighten it and then wrap forward. Now what I'm going to do here, I've unwrapped all the way, and I'm going to do something that's a little unconventional as far as a normal Serendipity is concerned. And that is add some copper wire to this to emphasize the ribbing. It's small copper wire, and it is definitely to emphasize the ribbing, not to add weight to this at all, because this is an emerger pattern. If it's not floating on the surface film, it should be within the top 2 to 3 inches of the water when it's being fished. So I've attached the wire on here, wrapped all the way to the back and back up to the starting point where my thread started, and I'll go ahead and do the fly this time. I'll speed this tape up a little bit so that it goes a little faster. So I twist that back towards the bend of the hook, start wrapping. Have to tighten it up just a little bit, keep going. And just come up underneath that and trap that yarn off, tie it off and trim that. Make a few wraps to tighten down those loose ends. Okay, having tied those ends off, I'll bring the cradle up to play and wrap this wire up. Now, ribs are commonly wrapped in the opposite direction of the body material, so they kind of lay over the top like this and protect the body material. But in this case, I'm going to wrap in the same direction as the body material because I want these copper wraps to lay right into grooves and accent the segmentation of this body. It's an important part of the pattern, the segmentation, and this just adds to it. So you don't need to do this. It's just an extra thing some people like to do, and it makes the fly a little bit flashier. So having wrapped that forward and gotten to the point where I want to tie it off, I'll just make a couple wraps over it and then twist the wire off rather than cut it. With that twisted off, I'll smooth out the head area here and then grab some orange. I'm going to use orange elk hair on this. So I'll grab some orange elk hair and cut some strands to do the head of this fly. I've got quite a clump here. I'll get rid of some of them. And this is probably enough to do 7 or 8 of these flies because you use such a short length of it. Now make sure my thread is where I want to mount, and put my hair up here and make sure that it doesn't stick out beyond and clump up the eye. I'll hold that right in place so it doesn't spin and tighten it down. Lift the nose of it. Tie your whip finish in underneath here. Trim that off. Stroke those fibers back down and then gather these long pieces and cut them about half the shank length. And there you have it. There's a Serendipity. And I'm going to tie one now using a Krystal Flash and a bead. But now this is a plastic bead, and it will still allow this fly to be fished as an emerger as opposed to using a metallic bead and making it into a nymph. So I'm going to start my thread just behind the plastic bead. Take some Krystal Flash fibers. This is a mix of copper and red. Secure these in, pull them down, and wrap back to the bend. And there's one's gotten away from me here. I'll stick that in. I cut it, I might as well use it. And wrap back down onto the bend. And remember, this fly, this pattern goes down onto the bend quite a ways. Wrap back up. Try to neaten this area up a little bit and tie these fibers down. And just as we did with the yarn body, I'm going to just tie a half hitch, hang this out over the bobbin cradle, and stroke all the fibers down and twist them backwards towards the bend. And then start wrapping. Now you can certainly wrap these hand over hand like this, or you can get your thread off the cradle or onto a cradle and wrap it using the rotary feature. Either way, you'll see if you don't have a smooth underbody, when you get up to where you made a bump in your thread underbody, you make a gap in your wrap. So take that out, try to wrap over it, but it's the underbody forcing this body and forcing that gap. Try to rotate and go over it, holding it tight, going backwards. Nope, pushes down off that thread. So when you see gaps like that in your bodies, it isn't your wrapping, it's the thread underbody that's causing the problem. I'll get this as tight as I can. Wrap it up and tie it off, and you can see that slight gap, but I think the fish will forgive me. So there we have a bead head, twisted strand body, but we still need a fiber head, or a body hair head, I should say. And for this, I'm going to use white belly hair off a deer, and instead of just doing a head right on the top, I'm going to spin this all the way around this hair. It's a technique some people use. The Serendipity was originally done with just a tuft on top, making a head. But a lot of people have found that spinning the hair, especially right behind the bead, covers up the unsightly area behind the bead and maintains the floatability of the fly and keeps it up in the surface area. So I do 2 wraps and then just pull it tight. Just made 2 loose wraps around there. Didn't hold on to it, pulled my thread tight. It gave a full 360-degree spin. I'll stroke that back. Tie this off. Now, one thing you can do is you can hang your bobbin back over your vise and put head cement on this thread if you're trying to tie off behind a bead head. And now when I draw this thread through and tighten this knot up, it will be secure, it will be cemented. Hard to get head cement in there otherwise and not gum up all of the deer hair. So with those fibers mounted, I just hold the longer fibers to the rear. Stroke all that short stuff to the front and then trim back to half the body length, just as the body, or half the body length was the length of the head when it was tied right on the very top of the shank. So there you have it. There's a beadhead Serendipity tied using Krystal Flash body material and white belly hair for the head, and the head is spun as opposed to being trapped directly on the top. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching.